I'm ready when you are. Is there any presentation, or is it just you're going to stand up and talk? All right, cool.
Yeah, SIP servlets and
Okay. All right, so we're winding down on day 2 here at Adhesion Conf. Next up, we've got Jose de Castro. He's the chief architect, Doxeo Labs, and he's going to talk about SIP serverlets and Moho. Take it away, Jose. Hey, that rhymes.
I'm bad at turning.
Great, thanks.
We can bump.
some people speak here.
You have the LinkedIn bump?
I'm in frame, right?
You got the bump. It's LinkedIn.
So great, just wanted to just take a quick minute and talk about SIP servlets and a really cool framework that we put together in the lab earlier this year called Moho. So SIP servlets are Java technology. The name's pretty descriptive. For those of you who've been doing web development for a while, you may be familiar with the concept of a servlet, but it's basically a Java, core Java building block for basically representing HTTP request and an HTTP response. So traditionally, servlets were all about HTTP servlets and things of that nature. But servlets can be used to model basically any kind of point-to-point communication. So if you look at kind of the inheritance hierarchy within servlets, I mean, there's a base servlet and you have HTTP servlets. What we've done is we've basically helped to kind of extend that concept to add SIP, just another transport that you can use for exchanging information, and also XMPP. SIP servlets they're a ratified standard. I think there's like 10 different implementations out there that are actually worth looking at, and probably many more that aren't. Namely, there's ours called Prism, or our SIP method. We have, they've been developing for a while. It's our own SIP stack, and pretty solid. It's being used in several carriers right now, and also at the edge of our network. But you also have open source ones like MobaSense, which is actually a great SIP servlet platform, but it's also a full Java media server, which, think about it, kind of warps your brain because you don't expect media processing to really happen in Java. It actually works remarkably well. And you have Sailfin, which is from Sun/Oracle. Not sure. Yeah, it's part of the Glassfish container. I'm not sure how long that's going to survive because Oracle has their own SIP application server that they charge lots of money for.
What's that called? What's that called?
Just Oracle.
It used to be WebLogic,
Right.
and then they bought it.
Right. Yeah. So it's just part of their general container, but I think they call it Oracle SIP server or something obvious like that. But lots of people have one. BEA had one, etc. So the market's kind of collapsing onto itself. It seems like Oracle's gobbling up a lot of the good tech out there. But my point with all this is that there are definitely options, and it's a pretty good standard. So why the need for a framework on top of SIP servlets? Well, SIP servlets are just signaling, right? So it's a great API for doing managing all things SIP, right? So it has some very kind of low-level concepts because you have access to each SIP message, you can handle invites, and it lets you inspect them, and lets you extract URIs, and then it has some higher-level concepts like, a call and a leg and a conferencing and things like that that you can basically use to kind of stitch together a pretty sophisticated set of call control operations. The issue is when you start doing media. SIP servlets don't touch the media path at all, so there's no way to actually play audio or collect digits or do all the basic stuff that you would need to do on a typical IVR system. So a new standard was created. It's so bad it doesn't even have a name. It's just called JSR 309. and so like IBM and like the WebLogic guys and Oracle, they must have gone into a room and just thrown darts at a dartboard because it is a really, really stupid API. But seriously, the way
you were recording, right?
Yes.
How stupid is it?
But no, we actually sell one of these things, which is the worst part. Go use 309.
Hope JT's not watching.
No, he hates it too. It's horrible. No, so we weren't part of the working group that created that thing. So we're part of the working group now. So hopefully the next version will be better. But even if the 309 API gets better, I don't think there are any plans right now to truly unify 289, which is the SIP servlet specification, and 309, which is the media side. It's just the guys on the working, they're just different guys on the working groups. They're focused on very different problems. And probably for good reason, because the media side, it's not specific to IVR. It's really just general media control from Java. It just happens to be that VoIP and IVR are just really good uses for it, but the two groups are very much independent. So what Moho is basically an IVR and call control framework that just happens to use SIP servlets and this 309 API to do its work. The nice thing about doing that is you can write a Moho application, and it's basically portable. So you can port it to, you can run it on Mobisense, you can run it on Sylphin, you can run it on our stuff, you can run it on Dialogic's Snowshore stuff. So it's a nice flexible platform, and it's completely asynchronous. So it's event-based, all direct dispatch in memory. Although we have plans actually being developed right now, several distributed processing models. So you can actually use your existing message queue architecture. So if you have a RabbitMQ installation or an ActiveMQ or basically anything that's AMQP or Stomp-based, you could basically use that for directed, distributed event dispatching. So the idea being that the application logic is sitting in Moho, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be coupled to the thing that's actually answering the call. And you guys are very familiar with that, using adhesion, and the remoting protocol that you're using is AMI and AGI. Well, the idea is to basically start thinking about what would an open protocol look like that could support all kinds of different vendors, and then you can just basically just wire into this event bus and provide features on the wire that aren't necessarily tied to any given vendor. So this opens the doors to all kind of interesting things on the protocol side, because imagine being able to write billing or a CDR engine that does nothing but just tap into this stream of events and then provide cross-vendor, cross-platform call detail records and billing information without ever really knowing anything about the application. Now there are going to be features and things that you'll basically have to inject additional billing context into the session to do things like, well, you use some premium ASR that we're going to charge money for, or some premium feature. You sent an SMS, so let me go ahead and add that to your billing record. But at least like the basic network stuff can all be aggregated in one place. Also, it just opens the doors to all kinds of interesting deployment topologies where you can maybe have your cloud provider provide all the interconnect, but have the application live completely outside, which is similar to what the CloudBox guys are doing, but in a more open way. And when I say open, I mean mostly that the fact that it's not tied to Asterisk, not that they're not open about what they're doing. So, anyways, I don't want to take up too much time. I don't really have any code samples. I didn't prepare slides, but I'd love to have a little hacking session. I think the first thing that we can maybe think about doing is, well, Jason and I were talking about maybe trying to get dial plan working on top of Moho. It sounds like you guys kind of want to kill dial plan, so at least that's what I was hearing yesterday.
No, that's not the case.
No, okay. So that was immediately taken off the table.
Yeah, I don't think it was seriously discussed to remove it. We've talked about possible replacements or upgrades or changes to it, but it's not going away.
Or just like some dial plan or maybe call flow driver, which the current dial plan system uses, but could be replaced with something like Eric designed or something that's maybe only asynchronous.
Yeah.
Basically, the change is that the code that you would have written wouldn't have changed at all, but just some of the porcelain around it makes it a little less magical what's happening in dialplan.rbg, and so it doesn't substantially
So that's
change
the
the interface.
meta programming.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. So, so I'd like to understand, where are the incision points and where, we can maybe plug in another implementation of dial plan. And I think that's a big part of what we're thinking about doing on the free switch side too. So I'd definitely like to be involved in those discussions. I think this will be a good exercise both for us, the guys that are maintaining Moho, to make sure that we at least have feature parity with some of the other frameworks that are out there, and to kind of have just a showcase application that could evolve along with Moho can evolve along with adhesion as well. A good example right now is we don't have the distributed bits done yet, right? So we're still working on that. So there are going to be some limitations on the first integration, whereby your adhesion is actually going to have to run in the VM. So I think a lot of people are doing adhesion with JRuby, but it's not necessarily coupled to it. In our case, we have this basically this shim layer that's translating between dial plan and Moho. The easiest way to do that is just to leverage JRuby and make API calls. Ultimately, those two can be decoupled, and we can just add. Hopefully, we'll end up with a pretty generic eventing mechanism for adhesion that isn't tied to AMI, and we can either translate Moho events into adhesion events, or maybe even as a community, we can come up with an actual unified event model that we can actually
I
start
think that's part of what limits events today is it's a very asterisk-centric view of the world. And one of the things we need to do is get to a point where we're not so specific to any engine. So having the input from what you guys do would be incredibly helpful in getting to that sort of common standard.
Yeah, and telephony world needs this, right? It's not just an adhesion or a Voxeo thing. It's like
Yeah,
just
totally
in
agree.
general,
Totally agree.
we kind of need to figure this out,
And
especially
if-
for open source stuff.
If we look at what Moho is doing, it's going to be from a telephony and multi-channel implementation. It's going to be a superset of Asterisk or FreeSwitch. It's not going to have a lot of their custom modules like calendar. Right? That's another thing. That the point is, it
But I
could
think there was a
be-
good argument made yesterday that those things really belong
Oh, they
in
belong
as
in the
adhesion
app.
applications.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's,
You know.
you don't want them in there anyway. But the point I'm getting at is, as we look at Supermanager and at the abstraction, looking at that as the actual model for abstraction,
That's
to then push down into what the specific asterisk or free switch methods. We actually talked a little bit about this at KlueCon. It may actually be a good way to look at that abstraction, because we've gone through and already done a lot of that abstracting at that level, and it could just be reused to become
Pushing
the
those
super manager.
expectations down to other projects.
Exactly.
as kind of someone who's sort of impartial between like the adhesion community and what Voxeo's been doing, Voxeo really has a lot of expertise in like hardcore telephony, and I think their contributions could be like, especially Jose's contributions and a lot of other people who just float around the Voxeo ecosystem. I think those are probably some of the most valuable contributions adhesion could get from its community.
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for being able to develop a telephony application against something that's free and widely available, asterisk. And then when the time comes needing to scale to go to a provider like Voxeo and run the same application unmodified, there's enormous potential for
Yeah.
It'll shake
yeah.
out a lot of more problems with that source. Yeah, I'm sure.
Well,
But-
Or if you could take it
again, we're
online,
basically- I mean, so this is nothing really new. I mean, we have voice XML and CC XML, right? We're basically just we're sliding that that line as to where the integration point is.
Right.
Yeah, right now, we have all this mishmash of protocols that we use inside the network. But we present all that in a very kind of standardized way, and it's like, oh, here's a voice XML browser and a CC XML browser. Under the covers, there's a whole variety of things that are at play. I'd like to start just kind of like reeling that in a little bit and start to standardize a lot of the stuff that we've learned over the last 10 years. And how do we use DNS? How do we use XMPP? How have we scaled to like 7 data centers, and then just basically start giving a lot of that back into the community? Because I see the true value of Voxeo. I think it's just the fact that we have some really awesome people, and we already have a global footprint. So for someone that wants to just launch an app and may have multiple offices, maybe in different countries, it's just a no-brainer to do hosting with us. I don't necessarily see our core value as being, the fact that we have this tight grip on our software, that our software is somehow like the best software out there. I think the other benefits definitely outweigh that. So I'd like to see us start contributing a lot more of what we've learned to the community in the form of open source, but also just doing more writing and just doing more education and just more contributing more in these types of forums. So I think it's
Well,
pretty exciting
certainly
stuff.
the Voxeo and Tropo support of Adhesion Conf is very much appreciated.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So yeah, I think I'll just cut it short like this because I think there's some people who may be interested, others that probably aren't so much. So I guess during the next breakout, anyone who's interested, we can walk through the Moho event model. Just look at the various events there. We have a media service interface that encapsulates most of the media operations that we're doing right now. and just answer any general questions. Great, cool. All right, thanks.
I think at this stage, we probably should just break up.
Break out.
And get this done and take advantage
Yeah,
of the time that's left.
and why don't we plan, it's about 3:15, so, maybe around 4:30 or so, we'll just do a quick wrap up and then you
Maybe
can
we
hang
stick
out.
around,
Yeah, but yeah, so, and if anybody, as we're doing this last little, breakout session thing, if you see any cups or stuff, kind of get them towards it, because I'm responsible for getting this place back to the way it was before
He
we
has to do
started.
the dishes.
I've been doing the dishes while y'all are talking geeky stuff, so.
Says the guy with the rainbow fucking Chewbacca.